Since I first saw it almost a decade ago, one image has remained with me. A woman standing in a cold setting over the grave of her friend. The man he had tried to warn her about approached from behind. He might be the death of her. He hands back her gun, the one tool that could kill him. He trusted she wouldn't kill him, though she promised she would. Why would he do such a thing? What heavy regrets laid within his heart? What vile and cruel intentions doth his shadow manifest? Ergo Proxy, the monster.
You think proxies are monsters? You don't know much about anything.
Can you hear it? The sound of the pulse of the awakening. Something inside wants to burst forth and take possession of your being. It is the beating of war drums before a massive battle. The ticking clock which counts down the minutes to when your heart stops beating.
The drums of war are beating. It is the music that brings the birth of a new world.
Can you somehow find a way to alter the rhythm of your pulse? The show is slow and methodical, but not boring as some have deemed it. No, it is not a show. It is a meditation, a guided meditation. You are meant to sit and listen to understand the pulse of the awakening.
It was a moment that defied all words. When I felt something inside me fall asleep, and something else wake up.
After a slow few episodes to set up some necessary groundwork, the plot of humanity slowly unravels itself.
Bit by bit. Bit by bit.
From a cyberpunk detective crime drama to the deepest and most profound meditations on all kinds of philosophies, the central theme and question is in the title. Ergo Proxy. Ergo, therefore. Proxy, substitute. He is blank, therefore he is a substitute for blank. Drawn from René Descartes' quote, Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. René Descartes wanted to doubt all things and know what was the one thing he could not doubt. He came to the conclusion that no matter what, he was thinking, and whatever was thinking must exist. After a massive ecological disaster, the remnants of humanity took shelter in domed cities, the skies above covered in an eternal darkness. Thousands of years later, in the domed city of Romdo, humanity leads lives pre-programmed from birth with their raison d'etre, purpose for being. Having been rendered incapable of reproducing naturally, humans are grown in syswombs. The citizens lead peaceful, boring, passionless lives in which they are simply told to consume, make waste, and fulfill their raison d'etre. We meet investigator Raelle Mayer, the granddaughter of the regent, and her android autorave Iggy, which she designed, secretly wishing destruction upon this boring paradise. She soon finds herself investigating a series of murders done by autoraves infected with the Cogito virus, a virus that causes them to think and obtain a soul. Upon their awakened consciousness, they are overwhelmed and kneel in prayer to any god that could be listening.
I have been liberated from my designated existence. I want to understand why I am.
However, this has led many to self-reflect and question the nature of their existence, so they rebel against their human masters. They knew they weren't accepted as equals to humans. They felt alone, and they grew jealous. For what will they do now that they have lost their raison d'etre, their purpose for being, which was non-being? Now, as existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre believed, they were condemned to be free because once thrown into the world, they were responsible for everything they did. While investigating, Riel is attacked by a creature known as a proxy. Later in her apartment, she is attacked by a similar creature, which seems emotionally drawn to her, and she to it. In her pursuit of truth, she notices a strange connection between the proxies and an immigrant named Vincent Law. Vincent was attempting to obtain citizenship by hunting down the infected autoraves and terminating them. Riel confronts her grandfather about the situation, who speaks to her through stone statues called the Collective. The regent forbids her from looking any further into the proxies and bugs Iggy to keep a close eye on her. In a disaster at a mall, Vincent Law is chased by a proxy which kills many citizens. The proxy, called Monad Proxy, is later found to be dead. Because of his connection to the proxy, Vincent is hunted down and falls out of the dome with a childlike autorave Pino, who had been infected with the Cogito virus.
Doubting the system is bad. Always obey.
Those are the conditions for being a fellow citizen.
Vincent awakes to find humans living outside the dome, those unfit to be model citizens. Soon, Raoul Creed, the Director General of the Citizen Security Bureau, sends drones to scout for Vincent Law. They begin to attack the outcast settlement, killing many. Vincent escapes with few survivors on a wind-powered vessel called the Chensen Totochen, or 400 Rabbits. One by one, the survivors slowly die off, leaving Vincent alone with Pino. He wonders if he is cursed, as death follows him everywhere he goes. He is forced to come to terms with the fact that he is a proxy, Ergo Proxy, the agent of death. Having faked her own death to escape Ramdo to find Vincent, Riel soon finds him outside a destroyed dome, laying on the ground, contemplating the nature of his existence. An unbugged Iggy and Riel debate their options on whether or not to trust Vincent. He claims to be a proxy, but it is hard to believe even as he confesses his love for Riel, a woman he only knew in passing at that point. There's something about her that was so familiar to him. Riel turns over a pistol with 2 bullets capable of killing an immortal proxy. They encounter another proxy out in the wild with his own auto-rave companion. Here, Riel witnesses Vincent transform into the monster Ergo Proxy to defend her. She shoots and kills the wild proxy. She then points the gun at Ergo.
I've seen it with my own eyes. Now I believe you're a proxy. In this gun is the only weapon that can kill a proxy. Vincent, if I pull this trigger, I can kill you too.
Kill me? Did you say you're going to kill me? Me? Stop it! Riel, please.
Fine, I won't kill you, but I'm coming with you.
Riel!
What I came here to find was the truth, not a dead proxy. Just remember this. Someday I'm going to pull that trigger. So can you still love me knowing that?
Unknown to Riel, Iggy had been infected with the Cogito virus and was slowly gaining a soul, yet she ordered him to return to Ramdo with the dead proxy without her.
Why do you allow her to act with such independence?
If she is more than you can deal with than what you saw you.
She is your raison d'etre. Lose her, and you will lose your meaning.
Such is the bond between an entourage and its master.
Worried about the dark abyss of nihilism which would result in a loss of meaning, feeling it more so now that he has a soul, Iggy plots to kill Vincent. With Vincent dead, Riel would have to return home. He kidnaps her and locks her in a glass coffin. Having been woken up to consciousness after a long slumber, it was all driving him insane, his voice beginning to drastically change to being more vile and cruel. With his newfound freedom, he would demand respect.
If this is how the Cogito virus changed you, then you might as well be dead. The real Iggy was infected with the virus and he died.
This really sends him over the edge. Does recognizing one's existence suddenly negate one's existence prior to becoming conscious? No, and he'll prove it to her. Believing that Vincent is destined to kill her, Iggy confronts him with the gun. The proxy is too dangerous to be left alive. Iggy envisions
a hideous monster tormenting Riel as she lies struggling in agony.
However, Vincent quickly disarms Iggy. Not sure what he should do, he runs off to check on Riel, saving her just as she is being attacked by the wild proxy's auto-rave. But he is destroyed in the process. Now, as just ahead, his last moments are of hatred born from tender remorse and love for his master.
Riel.
Riel Mayer!
Riel.
Iggy's prophecy of Vincent tormenting a struggling in agony Riel never come to pass, a point where she would be forced to shoot the monster. She promised she would kill him, for in the last few episodes there came a moment where he had just murdered her grandfather, Donov Mayer, and rushed up to her only to be saved by Raoul Creed, and the prophecy never came to pass, though it would have been most interesting to see what would have happened had Creed not appeared when he needed to. But just following the death of Iggy, Riel joined Vincent and Pino Pino on the Chensen Totochin. They decided to search for Vincent's lost memories, going back to his birthplace of Mosque. What is a proxy? What is the nature of the Dome Cities? What is it all leading to? Along the way and back, they encounter various proxies from other domed cities, most of which are uninhabited save for some unconscious auto-raves maintaining the place. Many of the proxies play mind games on the crew, often out of sheer desperation to be noticed. They are sad and lonely beings. Others simply want to preserve what they have left in life without coming into direct confrontation with the agent of death. Others seem to want to help Vincent and remind him who he is. Sometimes the answers are served to us like in a game show, though others are much more subtle. Each of these episodes could be the basis for a whole video essay. With each interaction, Riel grows closer and more accustomed to Vincent's kind innocence despite his dark shadow. The best episode in the whole series simply features a slice of life in which the crew is stranded in the middle of nowhere because of a lack of wind. Riel wonders if she can maintain her sanity despite the boredom. She becomes obsessed with detailing the tiny habits of Vincent the Proxy and Pino the infected auto-rave. She believes there is a clear wall between humans and proxies. However, in hindsight, it seems much more likely that she was just observing the differences between male and female behaviors, such as when she gets angry with Vincent for not putting down the toilet seat, noticing Vincent has a hole in his sock, or taking longer than needed in the shower despite a water shortage. They are forced to conserve what little power, food, and water they have, hoping it will all last up until the wind starts up again, so they can go to the nearest dome city to resupply. While Vincent and Pino try to enjoy themselves, Riel seems to just continue to get more and more exhausted with the situation. She soon decides to be more like Vincent and Pino, who remain naively optimistic. She shouts at the wind to come back and get her, like what Vincent had done earlier. Soon the wind picks up again, and they continue on their journey. When they arrived at Mosque, they found that it had been totally devastated. Depressed by the situation, Vincent returns to the ship to sleep, while Riel and Pino go on ahead. Meanwhile, a mysterious being, possibly Ergo Proxy, enters an underground room to destroy an auto-rave called Amnesia, who is holding his lost memories. Riel and Pino discover a kind of throne room riddled with bullet holes. A proxy, Monad Proxy, was stolen and taken to Romdo. Riel's relentless search for truth echoes the ancient Gnostic Christians who believed that gnosis, knowledge, was the path to salvation, that knowledge would reunite one into the Christ consciousness from which we came. But what if instead of uniting us, the truth would divide us?
Is this the truth? Maybe the truth was too terrible to ever be unleashed.
Here we shall backtrack to explain the origins of the proxy and the philosophy exemplified by them.
What are the proxies? The answer is in the word itself. We are the agents of the Creator.
Following the disaster which killed 85% of life on Earth, the remaining humans built a space ark called the Boomerang and retreated from Earth.
The Ark and Cradle will nurture you, but it will not educate you.
The idea of an ark, of course, brings to mind the story of Noah, the man who sheltered his family, the last of humanity, in an ark, while the world around them was destroyed due to disobedience to Yahweh. Perhaps these humans too were being punished by their own god? But the humans on the Ark Boomerang also created the Proxy Project, 300 immortal godlike beings to create their own domed cities. In these domed cities, pseudo-humans would be grown in artificial rooms. The auto-waves were created to assist them as automatic slaves. The purpose of the pseudo-humans was to make waste, which would continue the cycle of nature to renew the planet. But because they could not reproduce on their own, the pseudo-humans would inevitably die off, and the proxies would die from solar radiation. Then the real humans would return to perfectly empty and ready-to-use domed cities, as the Earth continued to heal herself. The proxies, the pseudo-humans, and eventually the Cogito-infected auto-raves were given souls because humanity wanted to be truly loved by their creations. They wanted something resembling human consciousness to always remain on the Earth in case they never returned. After 5,000 years of existence, Proxy 1 became bored and lonely with his eternal existence. He frowned upon the imperfect pseudo-humans he created in Romdo. He was unable to connect with them on a personal level. So he fled to another domed city where he met a female proxy called Monad, the proxy of birth and life. They fell in love, but he also learned of the purpose of his existence, of the real humans, and how he and the pseudo-humans were destined to be only puppets in their plans and disposed of. In his hate towards his creator, he plotted his revenge. He merged his DNA with Monad to create a shadow double of himself, which would act as the agent of his vengeance, an agent of death, a proxy of death, one able to survive solar radiation. Proxy 1 would then trick Raoul Creed into launching missiles to destroy other city domes. This was called the Rapture, which would cause everything to be caught up to heaven, that is, die. If the real humans had no domes to come home to, surely they would perish with the rest of them. But just in case, Ergo Proxy would be able to live in the daylight to kill the rest. The only way to visually identify Ergo Proxy from his father was a mask, utilized as an executioner's mask to hide his emotions. He ruled over Ramdo in place of his father and created more pseudo-humans. But he was tortured with his father's memories, for he had all of them. He remembered creating Ramdo, but he also remembered how his creations were doomed to fail.
Does that mean... It can't be. That means... we're the Creator's anguish.
It is speculated that he created Riel as a partial clone of his mother Monad. This is why he was so drawn to her in his Vincent Law persona. Sigmund Freud would have been so proud of him. Riel was also created to kill him when the time was right to end his suffering. Like the God of the Old Testament, he loved his human creations and so desired to live among them. He abandoned his city and left it in the hands of Donov Mayer, then traveled to his birthplace of Mosk, where his proxy mother Monad would sacrifice herself to make him human and wipe his memory. This left Monad in a comatose state, which made it easy for her to be captured by Ramdo's soldiers. Donov Mayer was hoping that the capture of Monad would bring their god back to them. They left Mosk in ruin and performed disfiguring experiments on Monad in an attempt to revive her. Sometime later, an immigrant named Vincent Law would come to Ramdo, having felt strangely drawn to it. From the proxies to the pseudo-humans and the auto-raves, all of them felt a deep, loving hatred of their creator. They would cry in agony,
"Why do we exist?
Who can ease our loneliness?
Why did you abandon us?
Why didn't you love us?
The Creator thinks, therefore we are. No matter how we may think, the Creator is already not.
Our wish.
All worlds are the thoughts of the Creator.
We are that which is thought.
We think, therefore we are. Our raison d'etre.
What were you doing when you felt this in your own life? How do you live? The deep pain of emptiness and loneliness when you cry out in ultimate agony, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" when you enter the realm of indistinguishable nihilism. For the fellow citizens of Ramdo, their paradise collapsed due to a lack of God. The revolt of the Cogito-infected auto-raves helped to facilitate the ruin of Ramdo. The humans couldn't accept a purposeless existence and so carried on as usual, even when they had no computer to type at or documents to sign. Even though there was no tomorrow, they carried on as if there was. Daedalus, named after the ancient Greek inventor, was given the raison d'etre of looking after Riel Mayer. She became his obsession. He couldn't handle it when she ran off in search of Vincent Law, so he continued his experiments on the lifeless corpse of Monad Proxy and created a true clone of her that he called Real Mayer, yet one who would still harbor a deep love for Vincent, one holding the thread of fate. She spread her wings to fly to Vincent, but like Icarus, she flew too close to the sun in an effort to meet the creator humans in the divine light of the sun as they were returning to Earth. Daedalus chose the path of nihilism. When the gods were fighting and the city was falling apart, he would help to accelerate the process of destruction. Raoul Creed chose the path of Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche said that God is dead in our modern world, and that a sudden lack of God would leave an empty void, which would surely lead to despair and nihilism, throwing morality into question. Ultimately, when you contemplate the vast infinite emptiness of space and the tiny pebble called Earth, you will still realize nothing matters. But he would revolt against it and consider the high ideal of the Übermensch. Our over-reliance on God made us too weak to live without him. So he would say with Raoul Creed,
"It's tempting to drown oneself in soothing waves of despair. And yet, we must evolve. We have no choice. We must all learn to do without God from now on. I will not despair."
Raoul Creed knew how much of a problem it was that the pseudo-humans couldn't procreate on their own, so he sought a scientific way, but the experiment failed. He wanted to rise above his god, and sought to kill him, but he was blinded by his ego. He forgot to consider the tender mercies of life. At the point of death, he suddenly remembered his auto-rave daughter Pino, and rushed to her, but he didn't make it. Can you feel it yet, traveler? The pulse of the awakening?
That which is divided must become one.
Actually, I think I'm lost.
The answers you seek you will never find until you start to look within yourself.
Look around and see that every book on the bookshelf of the universe is imprinted with your name on it. An idea is posed by the show about how humans are imperfect because their creator is also imperfect. If in real life the scriptures speak true that man was created in the image and likeness of God, and man is imperfect, what does that mean for our creator? Whereas Friedrich Nietzsche put it in his book Twilight of the Idols, is man merely a mistake of gods, or God merely a mistake of man? For in the white darkness we see that it is
a bit of a chicken or the egg dilemma, isn't it?
Take for example a society and its books.
Consider these books. For them to exist, society must evolve to an appropriately advanced state. But for a society to evolve, it would need the linguistic tools these books contain.
For God and man required a bicameral mind to direct his thoughts and actions to evolve to higher states. But he could not listen to the mind of God unless he had evolved to a sufficient state so he could listen and understand properly.
In the face of such a paradox, one could reasonably argue that language is perhaps not entirely a human invention. Is it too far-fetched to imagine godlike creatures bestowing man with the gift of language?
The books which are imprinted with your name are empty, for they require an observer. These books appear in the maze of your subconscious. This is where you begin to understand what you are. More specifically, what were you in the premortal realms before you chose to wipe your memory of it? Did it terrify you of what you were, and that's why you wanted to forget? That you may be forever alone inside your head?
To observe is to create perspective. I can never cease to be the point of origin from my perspective. I observe that which is not myself. The circle of life only continues because you exist. We wait to see the fate of you last survivors of this world. For if you perish, perception is removed, and existence comes to an end. A universe without perception is much like an enormous stack of rotting books, forever unopened and unread.
Stop it. Please stop.
To survive this darkness, the universe has thrust itself into a next phase of its life cycle.
In quantum mechanics, there is an unusual experiment called the double slit experiment, in which scientists were attempting to understand if photons were waves or particles. When shooting photons through the double slit onto the screen, they were observed to be waves. But when a scientist attempted to observe the photon itself, suddenly it behaved like a particle. Still to this day, there is no scientific way to explain this phenomenon. But in the realm of metaphysics, it can only mean one thing. The universe wants to be observed. Vincent Law observed this about life. He would choose life over death. He was the shadow of the universe, a dark reflection, the agent of death. Even though life was full of suffering and pain, he would rise above it instead of wishing for death to free him. He would not be fooled by an imaginary resurrection, no matter how beautiful. He would not erase his memories again. He only knew what was real for him at the moment, and what was most real for him was Riel, the one who rejected her programming, which allowed Vincent to live despite the monster. So he would reject his programming in favor of those who gave him hope.
Please just try and let all of it go.
I'm sorry.
But why?
Because I can't let myself forget anymore. I'm not talking about remembering the mission that was programmed into me. It's the faces I encountered, the confrontations we had, the love and support given, the life.
What is it that draws you to that existence? It's dark. It's cold. And there's never any knowing what horrors lie ahead.
But that's it. That's what life is. It's all that you said, but someone's waiting for me there.
You mean her?
What certain things about the universe will you observe? What faces will keep you going despite it all? Despite a universe that created you to observe it, yet often seems cold and unforgiving. Will you choose life despite all the pain and suffering? To put your trust in others and have faith? Though indeed, you will have to realize...
In truth, Proxy,
You.
Special thanks to the very few of you who were willing to watch to the end instead of stopping at the 2-minute mark. I hope you weren't too confused by my analysis of Ergo Proxy, the anime with 1,000 interpretations. Comment below what you observe about life, like the video, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get notified about new videos. Share it with a friend, and remember to keep it righteous.